You were taught that women weren't allowed in medicine, that black people weren't trusted with science, that progress came slowly, gently, fairly. That was a lie. Because before medical schools welcomed women, before hospitals opened their doors to black patients, before equality was even a word anyone pretended to believe in, a black woman was already practicing medicine. Her name was Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler. She was the first black woman physician in the United States. And when she documented what she knew, when she wrote a medical textbook meant to save lives, they made sure it disappeared. Not by accident, by design. This is not just her story. This is the story of how knowledge itself was erased. This is Black Antiquity. Like, share, and subscribe. Rebecca Lee was born on February 8th, 1831, in Delaware. Delaware was a slave state, a place where black children were born into a world that demanded they stay small, stay quiet, stay invisible. But Rebecca's family refused that script. Her parents understood something essential, that survival wasn't enough, that their daughter would need more than obedience. She would need knowledge. She would need purpose. She would need roots strong enough to withstand what was coming. Shortly after her birth, Rebecca's family made a decision. They sent her to Pennsylvania, a free state, to be raised by her aunt in a small community outside Philadelphia. This wasn't abandonment. This was strategy. Her aunt was a woman the community turned to when bodies broke down, when fevers spiked, when children stopped breathing in the night, when white doctors refused to come. Rebecca's aunt had no formal training, no degree, no certification, but she had something rarer, trust, earned through presence. Rebecca didn't just watch her aunt work. She absorbed the philosophy behind it. Healing wasn't about authority. It was about attention, about listening to what the body said when words failed, about showing up when systems didn't. From the time she was a small child, Rebecca was taught that care was not a profession reserved for the credentialed. It was a responsibility carried by those willing to bear it. Growing up in Pennsylvania gave Rebecca something many black children in the 1830s and 40s never had: access to education. She attended a small school for black children, not lavish, not well-funded, but consistent. Rebecca learned to read, to write, to calculate, to question, but her real education happened at home. Her aunt's work was unrelenting. Day and night neighbors arrived. A child with croup, a woman hemorrhaging after childbirth, an elder with pneumonia, abandoned by the local physician. Rebecca learned by proximity, how to recognize infection by smell, how to slow bleeding with pressure and prayer, how to comfort a mother watching her child suffer, how to mix herbal remedies with precision, because the difference between healing and harm was often just a few drops. By her teenage years, Rebecca wasn't just observing, she was assisting, trusted, depended upon. She saw clearly what white society wanted to deny. Black women were already practicing medicine. They just weren't allowed to call it that. Rebecca began to dream, not the small, safe dream she was supposed to have, but the dangerous kind. She wanted formal training. She wanted to be called doctor, not because she needed validation, but because she understood power. A title meant access. A degree meant legitimacy. A medical license meant the ability to write prescriptions, to demand entry into hospitals, to force the system to acknowledge what it wanted to ignore, that she knew what she was doing, and that terrified people. In the 1850s, Rebecca Lee moved to Massachusetts. She was in her 20s, determined, unflinching. She worked as a nurse in Charlestown, Massachusetts, under the supervision of white physicians. The work was grueling, long hours, little pay, even less respect. But Rebecca had learned long ago that respect was not a prerequisite for excellence. The white male physicians she worked under were forced to confront something uncomfortable. She was better than they expected, better than they wanted her to be. Patients recovered faster under her care. Families requested her specifically. Doctors began, quietly, reluctantly, to rely on her judgment. And some of them hated her for it. But others saw something they couldn't ignore. One physician, Dr. Samuel Gregory, was vocal in his belief that women should be allowed to practice medicine. He noticed Rebecca, not as a curiosity, as a colleague. He encouraged her to apply to the New England Female Medical College. It was a radical suggestion. Medical schools did not accept women, and they certainly did not accept black women. But Rebecca had spent her entire life doing things she wasn't supposed to be capable of. So in 1860, she applied. And somehow, against every odds stacked against her, she was accepted. Rebecca Lee entered medical school just as the nation was tearing itself apart. The Civil War was beginning. Slavery was collapsing. And here she was, a black woman, in a classroom full of white women, learning anatomy, pharmacology, pathology. It should have been impossible. Her classmates were uncomfortable. Some were outright hostile. The whispers were constant. She doesn't belong here. She'll never finish. She's taken a spot from someone more deserving. Rebecca said nothing. She studied. 4 years later, in 1864, she graduated with her medical degree. Dr. Rebecca Lee, the first black woman physician in the United States of America. No celebration, no headlines, no public recognition, just a piece of paper that said, "You cannot deny this anymore." After graduation, Dr. Crumpler moved to Richmond, Virginia, to work with the Freedmen's Bureau. The Civil War had just ended. 4 million formerly enslaved people were free and dying in devastating numbers. Disease, malnutrition, untreated wounds, infections, cholera, dysentery. White doctors refused to treat them. Hospitals turned them away. The newly freed were left to die in the ruins of the Confederacy. Dr. Crumpler stepped into that void. She treated thousands, women giving birth without sanitation, children with tuberculosis, men whose bodies had been broken by decades of forced labor. She worked under armed threat. White supremacists despised her, not just because she was black, but because she had authority. She later wrote, "The prejudices of physicians and others often made my work doubly hard." White doctors mocked her openly. Pharmacists refused to fill her prescriptions. Patients were told not to trust her, not because she lacked skill, but because she refused to know her place. And still, she healed. In 1883, Dr. Crumpler did something revolutionary. She wrote a book of medical discourses. It was one of the first medical textbooks written by a woman in America, and the first written by a black physician. The book was dedicated to mothers and nurses caring for women and children. It covered women's reproductive health, childhood diseases, preventive care nutrition, hygiene, practical medicine for underserved communities. This wasn't abstract theory. It was live knowledge, field tested, born from treating people the system abandoned. And that made it dangerous, because acknowledging this book meant admitting a black woman had knowledge worth preserving. A black woman had contributed to medical science. A black woman belonged in the historical record. So medical institutions refused to promote it. Libraries did not stock it. Medical schools ignored it, not because it lacked value, but because its existence was a threat to the story they needed to tell. So they buried it. For decades, the book vanished from circulation. No citations, no curriculum, no legacy. Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler died in 1895 in Massachusetts. No obituary in major medical journals, no honors, no public recognition. Medical history moved forward as if she had never existed. White male physicians wrote textbooks. White institutions claimed authority over medical knowledge. And the first black woman physician in America was erased from the record she helped build. Not forgotten, removed. Because if her name survived, the lie wouldn't. The lie that black women weren't capable. The lie that medicine belonged to one group. The lie that progress was fair. Her book, once erased, was later rediscovered. Scholars began piecing together her life. Her contributions were finally acknowledged. But the damage was done. Generations of black women grew up never knowing they had a predecessor, never knowing that the barrier had already been broken. That was the point. Erasure isn't passive, it's strategic. It's about controlling who gets to be a pioneer, who gets to inspire the next generation, who gets to be remembered as proof that the impossible was always possible. Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler saved lives. She trained herself when no one would train her. She earned her degree in a nation that despised her. She documented knowledge when no one wanted to read it. And for that, they hid her. Because erasure isn't just about forgetting names. It's about controlling who is allowed to shape the future. But buried history doesn't stay buried forever. Because before they wrote medical history, we practiced it. Before they taught medicine, we healed without permission. Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler, physician, author, pioneer. This is Black Antiquity, where forgotten history is remembered. Like, subscribe, and share our history, because the world will not remember us unless we remember ourselves.